Welcome back to Inside the Issues. I'm Alex Cohen, and on this episode, we have been looking at the recent turmoil at the LA Department of Water and Power. So what does this turmoil mean for consumers? And will recent changes be enough to truly reform the utility? For more on these questions, we turn now to Jamie Court, president of the group Consumer Watchdog. It's great to have you with us, and I'm going to jump right into it. You were able to watch and see what we heard from the new general manager of LADWP, Marty Adams. Your response?
I mean, look, I think he didn't apologize, and I think this guy was the chief operating officer at DWP when all of these problems happened, from the billing error to the, really, it's a potential criminal conspiracy that got the FBI at the door, and he's really not addressing it. So this really feels a lot like turning the Titanic over to the engineer once the captain steps down. I think they need new leadership. I don't think you can have an insider take over and change a culture that is, unfortunately, a lot like the movie Chinatown. And that's the problem we have with DWP. And I heard Eric Garcetti, too. You know, the mayor is glad that the FBI showed up. I mean, you know, that's like Trump saying, I'm glad that Mueller showed up. I mean, there's a real problem he needs to address. The reason the FBI showed up was there was a criminal conspiracy by DWP lawyers and by DWP's manager and by the city attorney. They stopped at the city attorney's office, and some deputies there are in this. So it's City Hall East, it's the DWP, and it's the problem that the city has with DWP is that they have gotten a lot of money from DWP over the years. There's a big transfer of funds, and they don't regulate it. They don't consider it really something that they're watching closely enough, and that has to change.
So you're saying Marty Adams, you believe, may not be the best choice, too much of an insider. They are establishing this office of the Inspector General, which we should say will be staffed by a guy named Dan Schnurr, who does not come from
he's going to recommend staff.
He's going to recommend staff. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that? About, you know, that might be a way of having an outsider while at the same time having someone on the inside who knows it. And as Marty Adams says, he says, hey, these guys know I'm not going to tolerate any messing around.
Well, it's who you put in that job. But the real problem, and I heard Marty Adams say it, is the Inspector General is going to report to me. No, the Inspector General reports to the mayor, because he can't inspect you if he reports to you. And that's the problem. The city council controls the budget for the DWP. So it's all intertwined. We need an outsider. One recommendation, and David Freeman, who I know you're going to talk to later, really believes in this, like, is the Consumer Utility Board, which they do in Chicago and other cities, where you actually have an outside group that represents ratepayers, and it's paid for by little $5 contributions per month by ratepayers. But the key thing is, in those cities, the utility tells ratepayers they have the right to join this group. The group has no financial ties to their utility or the city. They represent ratepayers, and the members, the ratepayers, choose the board. So but this concept, the Citizen Utility Board, petered out in California. If DWP and the city really want to fix this, they give the ratepayers their own Citizen Utility Board, like a neighborhood association, only of ratepayers, to fight for them. And they get to choose and determine who does it, because the insiders will never fix this. We've been living with this for decades. And DWP doesn't change from the inside out. It's got to change from the outside in.
Jamie, I want to go back to what you had mentioned about the other parties involved in this and concerns about the city attorney's office. And I think it's important for our viewers to know we reached out to Mike Feuer's office. We invited him to participate in this program. And he said, given the current status of the legal proceedings, he wasn't going to be able to comment, that he does hope to join us later on, and we hope that is the case. But I do want to go back and look, because as all this was first breaking, he was in the mornings here in Spectrum News 1 speaking with my colleague Giselle Fernandez. Let's take a look at what he had to say about the recent FBI raids, everything that's been going on back at that time. Check it out.
So when issues were brought to my attention earlier this year about potential conflicts of interest regarding those billing cases and lawyers under my authority, including outside lawyers, I retained an outside ethics expert to evaluate those lawyers' conduct. Her work is ongoing. I expect it to be completed, and when it is, I hope to be able to share the conclusions of that report with the public.
Okay, so there we hear Mike Feuer saying, I'm hiring an outsider, which is what you said you wanted a moment ago, but I'm just going to take a wild guess here that this is not enough.
Well, it's a lawyer who hasn't finished her report. We asked him, and I asked him personally at the time, to bring the Attorney General in, because he's an elected official. This is
the State Attorney General.
The State Attorney, not Lane Pansky, who is his lawyer. He took a deposition recently, which I've read. 64 times he said, I do not recall. He said even more times, no, I didn't look at documents. He is really doing the Sergeant Schultz on this. You know, I remember nothing from Hogan's Heroes, and that's not okay. And in fact, I think what I'm going to ask the city attorney to do is make that deposition public, because the videotape of that declaration of that deposition exists. The public and voters who elected him should see what he says and how he looks when he says it, responding to pretty simple questions you should know about. So I think Mike Feuer, who I've known for a long time and have done legislation with in Sacramento, has a lot of answering to do, but he has not been transparent. He has not been forthcoming. And when the FBI shows up at the city attorney's doorstep, that's a real problem.
Let's talk about this billing situation, because just to bring us up to speed here, hundreds of thousands of LADWP customers were overcharged or had some sort of billing errors between 2013 and 2016. Let's talk about where all of those claims stand, because I think a lot of people who didn't really know about that at the time, but then heard about the FBI raids and all the kind of things that followed in this wake are now thinking, well, wait a minute, I had some high bills back then. Was I one of them? Can I get money back? Give us the straight consumer.
Well, this is the problem, is that, you know, you heard Marty Adams do the party line that they said back then, DWP is going to give 100% back. No, it's 100% of what DWP said they owed you, and none of us really know whether that's right. So the case is being reopened, and what's important, because there was fraud, the attorneys working for DWP also represented the lead plaintiff in the case, so they could settle it on those type of terms that Marty Adams frankly should apologize for. But we need an independent audit, but we also need the people at DWP who gave up their rights in this settlement to, you know, for smart meter misreads, for other types of things that this settlement did not engage in, to have those rights reinstated. The judge is going to be asked, I'm pretty sure, because of the fraud, to reopen all the parts of the case that were not settled, and also to bring in an independent monitor to make sure that you got the money that you were deserving. But the real problem is we have a ratepayer advocate in the city who heads the Office of Public Accountability, Fred Pick, who's a former Enron consultant. I advocated with Garcetti just months ago for him to be fired, for him to have a job review, but the city council put him back in, and he does not deal with these issues. And we pay him quite a bit, about $300,000 a year. And the fact that the Nuri Martinez, the head of the council committee, overseeing DWP, and Eric Garcetti refused to even do a job review of this guy shows it really is an insider culture.
All this big picture stuff really important, but I only have about a minute left here. I want to end on kind of a consumer note here. If you're a member of the public and you go online to the LADWP's website for this, they'll say, hey, the window's closed. You either got a packet saying you were owed money back then or you didn't, and it's over. This has ended for a while. It sounds like what you're saying is if you are an LADWP customer, wait and see, pay attention, because there might be another door opening.
Well, you can go to the court. Yeah, there's no question this lawsuit settlement's going to be reopened. You can go to the court. You can file a complaint at consumerwatchdog.org, and we'll direct you to the attorneys who are reopening that case. But also, you know, the public needs to know that the mayor and the city council are responsible for DWP. And when the FBI shows up, it's serious. They need to speak up with their elected officials and say, we need to do better, and we can't just keep changing the chairs on the deck of the Titanic. We need to rebuild the ship starting from the top down, and we need some representation here.
Jamie Court of Consumer Watchdog, thank you so much for dropping by.
Thank you.
And when we return, as if the LADWP didn't have enough concerns of its own, scammers have been trying to take advantage of the utilities' woes. We'll hear more about that when